Friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined again on this second half of this very special yet disgusting Friday night double feature. I hope you guys joined us for Contagion. That was the first half of the double feature. Again, really intense viewing right now, but I think, I think there was a lot of good stuff in that last pod that hopefully you guys enjoyed as much as we did. But now we're bringing it down a notch, right? That one's very serious. Contagion is very terrifying. It's very realistic. I would argue that Outbreak is the photo negative of Contagion in that regard. Outbreak's the kind of movie that says, yes, I will defeat a viral outbreak by, helicopter warfare. And I'm here for that. All right, so as always, joined again on the second half of this double feature by returning friends and co-host Kevin Weinman and Dr. Michael Cloud. Welcome back, guys.
Hey. Thanks for having us.
All right, so Kevin, I know Outbreak is a perfect Kevin Weinman joint. Walk me through what you love about this movie so much.
Oh, boy. Oh, man. So as we alluded to before we started this is a Wolfgang Petersen film, and there's not a lot of Wolfgang Petersen films that I won't take a deep dive into. I think one of the things that's exciting is that they take something like a global epidemic and they turn it into an action film,
right,
which you're not really expecting. There's suddenly planes, there's people getting shot, there's explosions. That's not what viruses do.
Yeah.
Those are not the outcomes of outbreaks.
For sure.
But what I love about this is a rock star cast. Now, we just got done with Contagion. Yeah. Absolutely great cast there, too. But we had 5 Oscar winners in Contagion. We have, 3 or 4 Oscar winners here? We've got Morgan Freeman. We've got Dustin Hoffman. We've got Cuba Gooding Jr.
Kevin Spacey. Rene Russo. Although Rene Russo never won one.
Rene Russo never won one.
I don't know. Did Kevin Spacey win?
Donald Sutherland was definitely nominated at some point in his life.
Yeah.
So it is a Kevin Spacey one.
We try to forget about him.
Well, you know what? I was about to ask whether or not we could still enjoy Kevin Spacey movies. Nope. But the thing that I love about this film,
we'll get to that. I'll have that discussion.
It is the ultimate popcorn movie, and when it was filmed, think of it this way: we weren't really thinking about, oh, this shit could happen. Watching this now, you're like, oh, good God in heaven. This seems a little aggressive. But I think that from beginning to end, there are at least 2 or 3 parts in this movie that are can't turn off moments.
Whether or not it's
the spreading of the virus, whether or not it is as soon as they hop into the helicopter, the last 45 minutes of the movie
chase.
Yeah, the helicopter chase. I just think that there's a lot of great movies. So I'm sorry, I'm opening up this podcast with way too much of me talking, but I am a huge Outbreak fan.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating, because what I like is, whereas Contagion is almost too intense and too terrifying to watch right now, Outbreak's like, hey man, I know you're going through something. I've been there too. But let's throw a little Arnold in. You know what I mean? If Arnold had been Dustin Hoffman's character, this movie works exactly the same.
Griffey, Contagion is where I went into my high school and college calculus classes and learned some shit. Yeah. Outbreak is I went and watched Schoolhouse Rocks, and they sang to me about how things work.
Yeah, I went to college to learn from books, right? That's Contagion. Right? I'm at college, I'm book learning. That's Contagion. Then you're like, oh, I'm at my first house party. Now I'm learning some shit. And that's Outbreak. Cloud, walk me through Outbreak. What'd you think, man? What are your thoughts on Outbreak?
I just have to say ahead of time that I am not making light of the current pandemic that is going on. And I know we're going to be jokey with this, and I am not joking about the current pandemic. I am joking about this movie exclusively.
This is exclusively Matoba virus comedy.
What? I'm sorry?
This is exclusively Matoba virus comedy. Is that what it's called? Matoba?
So, that being said, to know that I'm actually taking it seriously, please watch the Contagion episode that we did. But now, I'm going to lighten up a little bit and
Cloud.
just talk about how ridiculous this movie is and how I might actually hate it.
You are a frontline medical doctor. It's fine for you to let loose, man. That's what I love about Outbreak, too. Because, again, I think Contagion, man, I don't know how many people like me wanted to turn it off watching it. It was, like, too much, man. It was too scary. Outbreak puts me in the, okay, feels like it's adjusting to, like, where my life is right now. But it says, hey, man, we're still a movie and we should have fun. You know what I mean? So I think Outbreak's in a better movie for right now than Contagion. Well, not even close to a better movie, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, if you asked me, like, which one I'd rather watch today, it would be Outbreak. Because I think it's fun and entertaining, whereas Contagion is just like, hey, everything's really scary and life is no fun.
Yeah.
And this Outbreak never sacrifices the fun. Wow. And this is what I think is really impressive. And I think it's more the first, like, 2/3 of the movie. But the way it balances true thriller and terrifying moments while never sacrificing the fun, I think is one of those incredible things that we got, like this dearth of 90s action thrillers. They could be about literally anything. Like Kevin and I on this show covered, Red October. And you're like, that's just like, the world could fucking end. Like a Russian sub could just park and blow up our capital and like, it's over. But like, you're like, I'm just having fun riding around in submarines with Sam Neill and Tim Curry.
So yeah, I watched this and I had to wonder, like, trying to remember the mindset of when we saw this in theaters back in the day, and if people walked out of that movie like terrified at the possibility, or if they watched it like we watch now, we're like, well, that's ridiculous. Like yeah, it was just kind of fun to watch Dustin Hoffman like fly around in a helicopter chase scene.
Did
but,
it
like,
make
also
you
knowing that
remember remember when Hoffman was at the peak of his powers?
Yeah.
This is one of the last really powerhouse Hoffman movies, right?
This may be my least favorite Dustin Hoffman movie, but I love Dustin Hoffman in it.
Oh, that is
your least favorite Dustin Hoffman
movie. But I love Dustin Hoffman in this movie.
No.
Okay, walk me through that. Wait, so you hate this movie. You think it's the worst Dustin Hoffman movie, which I think an easy IMDb would just blow that hot take out of the water, right?
And I am clearly not a film scholar like you two.
Just watch Sphere. All right.
Well, I remember that I Heart Huckabees exist.
Fair enough. Sphere.
Like, I Heart Huckabees exist, and it's worse than Outbreak.
Outbreak, Sphere. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, Sphere is literally the boring, terrible Dustin Hoffman in a suit movie.
All right, I did not think that. Fair enough.
Actually, I like Sphere too, but that's neither here nor there.
There were many moments in this movie that I liked, but there were so many times it's like, God, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just become too, I don't know, expecting too much. Where I'm just like, come on, that's ridiculous.
You went into Outbreak and you're like,
how many like terrible like 90s and 80s movies I still love, and maybe it's just because I don't remember this movie that well, and like I had no emotional attachment to it when it first came out, and now I'm watching it again for the first time in like 20 years.
You're very close to the content. Let's be honest. Like, I feel like the content itself, it's not making light of it, but it's certainly exaggerating and glorifying the whole idea behind it.
I actually think that the treatment of the virus and the sickness and the consequences, the human consequences of this movie, I think are spot on. I think they're exactly where they need to be. They're not really making fun of like, oh, this is just a fun place to play, right? I think it's very serious and somber. We see some really heavy shit happen.
You do see it.
To like American citizens in this movie, right? What I think is when you add the government boogeyman element, right? Yeah. I think then it becomes where you're like, oh, okay, they're adding in this extra thing to take our mind up. Because the thing I always question when I've seen Outbreak, and I've watched it more times than I am proud of, I guess, right? Because my mom really loves this movie too. So like we used to watch this. I feel like we've watched this like 10 times when I was a kid. And there's a big part of me that wonders what this movie looks like if Dustin Hoffman never leaves that town. You know what I mean? Like, there's this theory of thriller movies, right? That let's say we're in this town. They set up this town. It's quarantined. No one can get out because this virus is so fucking deadly, right? And then the entire end of the movie is them not in the town. And it feels like you're in a pressure cooker, and then you pull me out of the pressure cooker, and I don't feel the pressure anymore, right? Like,
there's no like scaling up. Like it's
So
like
I
they took
wonder-
one threat and replaced it with a completely other one.
And I'm not saying that like the threat disappears, right? Because then it becomes, instead of, I think the first half of the movie is this beautiful watching this terrifyingly quick virus unravel our society, right? And how fucking scary this is. I mean, this virus, they say in this movie, has a 100% kill rate,
Yeah.
you know, and it liquefies you, right? It's so fucking scary. Like, I remember as a kid, the first time I heard about Ebola, I feel like we were in middle school, and you heard about it, and you're like, oh my fucking God. Like, it was the scariest thing ever. But then it was just gone, you know? We never heard about it again until years later. But, so I think the first half of the movie is this really good kind of, oh my God. There's so many scary, beautiful visual storytelling moments. And when they leave the city, I do wonder if that's the strongest way to carry through the movie. But if you don't leave, maybe then it just becomes this insanely heavy film like Contagion.
Contagion was so much better because it made you feel the global impact.
Yeah,
this was like
it's weird, right?
It was just like with like every 90s movie where everything is contained to a small town. No matter what the antagonist is, it's always in a small town that grows to about the size of that town, and that's about it. And maybe that's
but you think about budgetary concerns. Like what in the world would you have wanted them to do to keep filming in quote unquote Africa when they didn't have the resources to lug hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment and people to different locations? Like
sure. That's why I said, like, I may be expecting too much.
Yeah.
My thing is though, this is weird because Kevin, I think really like dissected the hypocrite in me, right? Whereas I think Contagion works well because it is this global, fast-cutting, everything. It's like, this is the era where the world became very global, right? This movie still feels almost like Cold War politics, right? Like, we got to shell up and isolate and whatever. And there's something that's so beautiful about the segment when they get to the creek, right? Or Cold Creek, what's it called? Whatever. Cool Creek, California, right? Like, once they get there, I think that part of the movie is so fucking beautiful. And it's tense and it's insane. And that's where it's scary. When we pull way back, and once we get in the helicopter, right, and we're doing Midnight Run in the helicopter, I feel like then the movie is not scary to me anymore.
Right.
It loses that.
That's one thing. That may be one of the biggest problems of the movie is that this virus, to whoever made it, isn't scary enough. They need to throw in.
But that's what I mean. It's so much scarier than any other virus in any movie ever.
Right. Yeah, the virus. Right. Exactly. Like, in concept, that virus is terrifying.
Short of like whatever that virus was in 28 Days Later. Like, that seems worse. I would rather just liquefy than become a Danny Boyle like sprinting zombie. But this virus is one of the scariest viruses ever, right? And the movie does it because that's the thing. When you first get there and Hoffman's like kind of sussing out what's going on, every inch of the frame of the movie is scary, right? Because I remember looking around and like when the army trucks first start rolling up, they're not wearing protective masks and stuff. And I remember that's like a scary moment. You're like, oh my God, the troops don't know. And that whole scene is so scary and so fraught and so emotional. And then it's like, get to the chopper. they're just like cruising. So I don't know, but Kevin's right. Like, Contagion being global worked very much in its advantage.
Yep. Yeah, well, because you just get this, you get a better understanding of how situations like this are dealt with. Like, a writer in the 90s probably was pretty segmented on what the governmental impact is in terms of making decisions on creating an environment that mitigates a virus outbreak.
Yeah.
And it's like now, like, I'm sure that you have a lot more resources. You got the internet to be able to understand that. And back when this movie was filmed, it was like, I'll go to the library or I'll call Bob. He works in the government. And it's like, man, it didn't go far to be able to go and probably understand what needs to happen in these scenarios. So they took what they were given. They made a really crazy movie out of it. But like,
you just completely nailed one of the scariest scenes in the movie to me, which is, it's a twofold scene too, because I text you guys, and when the movie theater scene happened, I was like, oh my fucking God.
Right?
Yeah. We were on like a group chat, and I was like, this is one of the scariest scenes in any movie I've ever watched. Like, I was having full-on panic attacks on my couch, like, why is he in the theater, not cover his mouth and coughing everywhere? And when he like collapses in the food line and everyone he's walking by, it's so fucking scary. And then we rush to an ER and people are getting rolled in.
Yeah.
I love
the,
that moment.
the visual moment that scared the fuck out of me was there's just this small town doctor, right? You can tell he's like one of the boys, drinks a lot at the weekend.
And the nurse comes in, right?
Because he has his shirt unbuttoned like 3 buttons down when he's on shift, right? I was like, who's this Don Juan of a doctor? But she goes in and he's just feverishly flipping through like an old encyclopedia. And he's like, I don't know what it is. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
There was a time when that was the best he could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I watched that scene. I'm like, that did like make me realize, like, thank God we live in a time where information is much more easily accessible. Like, I don't have to go to like the medical encyclopedia, for lack of a better term, and try and dig this out of hundreds of thousands of pages.
Yeah. And then like, how long is that topical? Like, how long until that book's not up to date anymore?
Right. Exactly. Like, in hell, in medicine anymore, like 5 years is completely out of date.
Good Lord.
And you wonder what that juxtaposition is in the fact that, like, back in those days, what people traveled, what they ate, how they experienced travel, compared to now, where people are much more willing to travel, try new things. We're not having kids till later on in life. We're making decisions based on our own experiences. Like, and the reason why I'm getting meta about this is because even 20 years ago, the whole thought process of what travel looked like and what it was to experience travel is completely different. Like so I think that, like, you know, somebody eating something or contracting a virus is much more likely now than it ever was 20 years ago, because even 20 years ago, people weren't traveling or doing things as crazy as they are now.
But even this movie, right, they show you, so some guy wants to get rich quick selling a monkey, right? And then on that same day he gets shut down, he gets on a plane.
Yeah.
And it's all the way across the fucking country. Yep. In like one cut of a movie. That's kind of the part of the movie I was like, wouldn't like everyone be dead already?
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's where I think they probably made some later decision. I think that's probably where that like rapid mutation came from. Right. Where they probably, whoever was like making it, realized,
dude,
like,
that's another terrifying scene.
Plane. This is gonna be a really hard movie to make.
Right. And but so that was one of those moments I'm like, I never want to be on an airplane again, because we've all been on the airplane with Coughing Guy. When you see him all curled up and that kid reaches for the fucking cookie. Yeah. I mean, oh my God, I couldn't catch my breath. I was like, Jesus, I loved that moment. Christ.
Yeah. Well, and by the
also,
way,
you're like, I don't feel that bad for that kid or mom, because if you're a parent, your kid should not be wandering the aisles. First off,
this is again the '90s. So.
all right. So Jimbo looks like a bag of shit, and then he gets off that plane, and his significant other lands a sloppy kiss on him. Like, I'm sorry, like. We all love our significant others to death, but at the same time, when they're walking off the plane and they're almost bleeding from the eyes, your first inclination is like, I can't stop myself from kissing you.
Yeah, right.
Like, you're like, we'll still have sex later, but no kisses. No kisses.
You gotta tell me that you're. Let's go to the doctor.
Yeah, here, I'll throw a water at you from Starbucks, and you can carry your own luggage. Gross. But I do think she's in she caught, this is the equivalent of like, who was George Clooney's girlfriend when he was on Roseanne? And you're like, oh man, I hooked the big one before everyone knew who the fuck this is, right? So that girl's probably like, this is amazing for me. And she's like, 2 years away from, now he's on, Grey's, and I'll never get that kiss again.
Well, what he basically looked like was the bassist for a knockoff Pearl Jam band at that point. Jimbo looked like he was living paycheck to paycheck, trying to write poems somewhere.
Yeah, he was definitely at a Soundgarden cover band for sure.
1,000%. Hold on. So, do you want some random facts about this movie?
I would love random facts about. No, go for it. Yeah, let's do this.
Okay. All right. First off, Sam Daniels, right? Dustin Hoffman's character, 100% originally intended for Harrison Ford.
Is there any movie in the 90s that was not Harrison Ford's to pass?
Yeah. Everyone. He's a guaranteed $100 million draw.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no. But Harrison, coincidentally, do you want to know the ironic thing? Is that his character in Blade Runner was actually written for Dustin Hoffman.
I I cannot see Dustin Hoffman being.
That would have been the worst.
So basically, Ford worked with Wolfgang later with the Air Force One, but Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone were the three people tagged to this, and then Dustin got the job after all three of them turned down that opportunity.
And
if I wish Stallone was in this movie specifically for that ending helicopter stuff. How much cooler would that final fight scene and like when they land on the boat and Hoffman does like the 2-foot jump? Stallone would have been like, like catching it with one arm and like swirling around. You're like, wow, this, virologist has a lot of time for lat pull downs. Jesus Christ.
Stallone would have found a way to rip off a machine gun and shot at the other helicopters behind him during the helicopter.
Yeah. When he's like, Cuba, dodge, he'd be like hanging by his legs, flipping the missile in midair.
So Rene Russo was like the fifth in line. Jodie Foster originally was on the film, dropped out. And then it went to Meryl Streep, Sharon Stone, and Robin Wright. Robin, which, by the way, between 1985 and even, I guess, I don't know, until now, I feel like Robin Wright is tied to every fucking movie because everyone wants Robin Wright to be in their movie. So anyways, they were looked as being the other people that were going to be in that movie. And then finally, in terms of the casting what ifs, Joe Don Baker was Donald Sutherland's part.
Really?
And then they said that they needed a little bit more validity to that scene, and Don Sutherland came in and refilmed all those parts.
So Joe Don Baker filmed it?
Filmed.
What? See, I feel like maybe because Joe Don Baker is a little more like gritty, right? Like he feels a little like a good old boy kind of military persona. But, I guess Donald Sutherland has this very cold, detached nature.
That's exactly why they refilmed it. Joe Don did not have the depth, and they needed more depth.
Because you could see him being the fiery, I want to fucking blow this city up, right? Damn, that's crazy. I could totally see him in that role, though.
But Donald Sutherland was so good at just the cold, calculating, merciless.
He lived through the invasion of the body snatchers. He's seen how bad this can go.
I loved his character. For a long time, I had a very negative outlook on Donald Sutherland as an actor because as a kid, I saw this movie and I go, fuck that guy.
You hated him in real life because he wanted to blow up the city.
Yeah, just saying.
You know what's funny? I was watching it yesterday with my wife, who is a nurse, right? She's an RN. And she looked at me and she's like, well, he's right. And I looked over and I'm like, are you pro blowing up an American city? And Amy goes, whoa. Yeah, you have to. And I go, oh my God. Wow. And everyone thinks I'm the bad one.
No, did you?
But then I thought about it and I was like, I think she's right.
Page. You're pro blow up the city too.
Well, she made a good point. I was like, all right, so let's take, because this is one of the things in the movie, right? Which is Dustin Hoffman just disobeys an order and commandeers a ship and all these fucking medical vehicles, whatever. And he's like, I'm going to jump in here and save stuff. Once they get there, and this is one of the things the movie does that I absolutely hate. It's one of my least favorite things in movies. Where they get there, and they're like, this thing has a 100% mortality rate in 8 hours, right?
Well, I thought they said 24 to 48 hours.
No, I think they said 8 hours because they showed that's how long it would take to spread it across the whole country. But 8 hours, you're dead. Yeah. Right? And not only that, but your insides are liquefying. So even if you get saved at the 7th hour, like Rene Russo, you are a water balloon, and you're not okay to just start making out again.
Right? Yeah, you don't just regenerate. Right.
And so they do this thing where we know for a fact, over 600 cases confirmed. People who are in their houses, it's airborne, and they're touching everything. But yet we still have time, what feels like a week of them looking for stuff and manufacturing serums and Dustin Hoffman and his helicopter ride. You're like, I don't know the geography exactly, but that's at least a whole day's worth of traveling.
Well,
so that's the question: do you just let everyone die?
Or no, he goes to some office to track down a cargo ship.
Wait, time out. Before we get on Dustin Hoffman's crime spree, we'll do Dustin Hoffman crime spree in a moment, right? Yeah. But I'm just saying, are they wrong though?
Are they wrong?
I think what I like this in the movie, right? And again, Kevin and I also covered Crimson Tide. And I said one of the things that's amazing about that movie is Gene Hackman's not portrayed as just this raving lunatic. His
Right.
side 100% makes sense.
Correct.
At the end he was wrong, but you understand he would have been right in the moment had he done what he done. And I think this movie, it doesn't do as good of a job because by the end they're clearly, he knows what's up, right? Like Donald Sutherland knows that they could avoid this, whatever. But I do think there's a real argument to be had, man. Like,
there's no point in blowing them up because it's so virulent and people die so quickly that actually Morgan Freeman, one of the legitimate points in this movie is Morgan Freeman's input at the very beginning when he says, it kills people so fast, we don't have to worry about it. Like, that's actually like a real thing. When you worry about a disease, if it kills off a population in a very quick period of time, it doesn't have time to spread out. Like, it just kills everything. And the virus cannot survive without a host. So if you kill all the hosts real quick, the problem goes away. So that's what would have happened in the town. They didn't need to blow it up. They all just would have died.
I mean, they still have the monkey out there and whatever's happening in other parts of the world. But what I'm saying is, we see them shooting down rednecks. They actually murder American citizens.
Yeah.
Because they're about to break quarantine. People who just want to escape with their family.
You can't let them run to another town in that,
so you're pro murdering those rednecks, but not blowing up the city? Whoa! See?
Well, Griff, you didn't win. He's a doctor. He's going to fucking think about his answer. Take it easy.
No, you have to answer right now.
Serves zero purpose.
This is the mindset I'm putting you in, right? The one redneck who's like, I'm at the passenger window. I might as well lean off and pop a shot at the helicopter. I love the idea of an American who's like, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to shoot at a helicopter.
It's one person and not a town.
What the hell? Are they really shooting at me? Like, why are they shooting at me?
But that's what I mean, right? So the movie does a good job of, we understand they cannot let those people go. And the next thing we see is government agents or soldiers bearing down with guns on a family. Like just a normal mom, dad, and 2 kids, right? And that's what it does. It says, hey, man, this is fucking scary, right? Mm-hmm. And I think they did a good job of making a reasonable moral gray area with the decision making.
It was cracking a few eggs to make an omelet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, you're mitigating the amount of people that would otherwise have to go and be sacrificed because a couple of idiots want to go and make a run for it.
Well, so, my theory is that everyone in this town would be dead, right? So I agree with you. It's like, just let them die out. Hold the quarantine. Don't blow the town up. Let them just die out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's not very, that's not morally superior.
It's a little more terrifying, like, as a movie, if, like, you have, like, a small glimmer of hope that you might find a treatment, which is minimal to none, in this short, virulent window that you might save people. But really what you're doing is you're just keeping these people contained to die and trying to keep other people, like basically what they did, which is actually a good part of the movie, where they said, stay in your house and mark your door if you feel sick.
Oh, that scene when they just showed like American street front with like all the flags and sheets waving.
And the mom that just turned to the kids.
Unbelievable. When the one girl wants to run to her and the dad's like, don't. That killed me because you know what they did too. And again, I think this movie gets shit on because again, it does kind of devolve into dumb action and timelines don't add up, whatever. But there is so much good visual storytelling because they take the mom, she's walking in with an overnight bag, right? We see her get tested. The next thing we see is her case number on a slide and Kevin Spacey banging the table, and we know that she's gonna fucking die. Yep. And I was like, that is such a brilliant transition from here's the person's life into the hospital unknown into fuck, they're dead. And it happens that's beautiful visual storytelling. And I hate when movies like this, especially of this era, because they have some maybe more nonsensical beats, people throw out all the amazing stuff that's happening in them.
That's fair. Well, the last 45 minutes ruins that movie.
I do not agree with that. Kevin, yes, you may. What do we got?
I don't mean to throw a wrench into the conversation, but do we believe that Kevin Spacey and Rene Russo were both acting against their own against the country's own best interest because they kept practicing when they knew that they both were sick? Do we believe that both of them should have admitted themselves at that point so that they weren't contaminating people?
Well, technically, they were inside their isolation suits, so
But Kevin Spacey's was ripped.
yeah. But then he
Right.
got into a new one.
But I mean, I think Kevin's right. Like, once you're already that sick, like, he has to know he's going to fall over at some
Yeah.
point.
Oh, yes.
What if he
Once
flips
you're
a, like,
delirious,
Final
no, you should be
Destination's a
practicing.
scalpel into Cuba Gooding Jr.'s suit or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know why
should be
they'd have
practicing
scalpel in their virology machine.
once you're symptomatic, yeah. But
But that's what they made
infect
Kevin
anybody 'cause they're
Spacey the
inside.
guy that hides his zombie bite. That's like a funny thing that's been going around the internet. Are people that won't self-isolate are the same assholes that pretend they weren't bitten by zombies.
People that
Yeah.
won't what?
And yeah, that weren't bitten by zombies, right? You know, in zombie movies, people always roll their sleeve down, so like you won't
Yeah.
know that they're going to turn.
What are we paralleling that to?
The people who won't self-isolate right now. It's
Oh,
the same asshole breed, right? But I agree with Kevin. Like, I think every doctor in this movie they should all be in doctor jail. Because they're all acting such horrible faith. Every single doctor in this movie sucks. Kevin Spacey, once his suit rips, he should have gone into the unit. I'm sure
same.
he's like, because he thinks he's smarter than everyone, obviously. And he's like, maybe I can help push it just far enough that, like, I can save myself. But you can't risk that shit.
And like to my point, at that point, at the very least, if you're going to stay in your suit and do work to try and come up with a cure, turn to your other doctors and be like, "This fucking thing ripped." Like, I might go into epileptic seizures here in, I don't know, 5 minutes. Who knows? And I say
Yeah.
epileptic, I don't know.
What
But
if
I
he
might go
falls
into
on, like, the
seizures at
experiment
any
that could
point.
save everyone?
Yeah, yeah. I just thought I thought that was a weird toss at that moment.
See,
I mean, that
Kevin
is actually,
Spacey,
like,
the actor,
a
made a
question
decision
that-
that terrible person Kevin Spacey would have made.
No, I think that's actually that hits on like a tough choice that I think a lot of like healthcare providers have. As Griffey had mentioned before, like, you know, your employer makes you go in sick. I think doctors kind of have a mental difficulty not going into work and doing what they need to do because on one hand, yeah, it's not great to go in and if you're sick and get other people sick. No, that's bad. But at the same time, as healthcare providers being a limited resource, if you're not there at all, then these people are getting no treatment. So where's the balance there? I mean, it's a tough choice either way.
Yeah, but what would have been the detriment of Kevin Spacey being like, "Yo, this shit ripped. Give me like 2 hours."
Oh,
And
right.
I'm
No, like I said, once he was delirious, or once you become
Or like,
symptomatic,
hey, can you
get the
check
hell out
on
of
me
there before
every
you-
10 minutes? P.S. I'm going to go work in the annex. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Or yeah,
don't
just like
just
stay away
chill.
from other people or isolate it. It's a hard thing to balance out because it's not like another job where you call in sick and there's not a major consequence of not being there.
yeah.
Like you're an essential, like they were all essential staff. Like they didn't have
Yeah.
many to begin with. They were already overwhelmed.
Oh, it's a gut-wrenching scene, too, because one of the cool scenes at the start of the movie is when he saves Dustin Hoffman. When he sees, he's like, your suit is
Oh,
ripped.
yeah.
When Hoffman's talking
Yeah.
about the dogs, right? His day-to-day
God
life.
bless
And he's
Duct
like,
Tape. God bless Duct
Yeah,
Tape.
yeah,
right.
right? And he's like, hey, man, like, maybe get your fucking act together. This is the most deadly virus of all time. And Dustin
Yeah.
Hoffman's like, oh, shit. Like, it kind of brings that home. Like, to a lot of people, this is their job. And they do that a lot to Hoffman in the movie where it's like, you were wrong about this and wrong about this and wrong about this. He's like, but the time I'm right, like, that's going to
Yeah.
really. But even Hoffman is, like, not taking it seriously until it's, too late. So, yeah, I don't know. I felt bad for Spacey in that. But the Rene Russo one was just, like, gut-wrenching.
Where she sticks herself.
Yeah, because then even Hoffman starts running away, and you can see the, like, he doesn't care anymore. He wants to help her, that one person. Oh, man.
Well, and her initial
Brutal.
reaction is, it didn't get through the glove.
Yeah, the denial that kicks in. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. Yeah, this movie, I was like, man, like, I couldn't imagine being brave enough to, like, help out. Because
so how
even
did we-
Contagion has that where it's like, do you want to, or no, this movie does it, where it's like, hey, we need to do an autopsy. And those two doctors are like, fuck that, I'm not doing an autopsy, you're crazy. And then the
So
one,
hold
like,
on.
old timer's like, I'll do it. But then his
and
hands are
he
shaking?
has to hand the scalpel to Rene Russo because he can't. handle
She's
that
like, you
shit.
just hold the organs, I'll do the cutting. But I was like, yeah,
so-
man, I would probably be one of those two doctors like, no, that's scary.
So, hold on. If you are if you're Donald Sutherland and you have the choice of trying to eradicate the virus at the beginning, do you blow up that entire village with everybody in it?
That town,
No,
yes.
yeah,
Boston,
pointless.
no. You'll
What's that?
never recover from being the person that blew up Boston.
Yeah.
People will forget Cool Creek. Or
No.
whatever it is.
I mean, the beginning, the small village in Africa.
Oh, yeah, dude. That was so crazy. I was like, for how many times I've seen this movie, I'm like, do I always forget that there's just like a genocide at the start? Where we just like destroy this village for no fucking
It opens up pretty raw.
There was no point in doing that again.
Wasn't there?
The town was all dead.
I know, they kind of do this like nature morality tale. It's like the monkeys have witnessed the sin of man. It's like the monkeys are coming back for revenge on us all those years later. Because they even have that one shaman where they're like, oh, he can't get it. He's cool with the monkeys. Yeah. And you're like, is he like the organ grinder of this whole pandemic? Is the shaman the one who sells the infected monkey to the guy? He's like, hey, I'll tell you where to trap monkeys. And he's like, I've unleashed a pandemic. That guy on the hill is wildly untrustworthy.
Yeah, he is. That is kind of like a very outlying character now that I think about it.
The guy who started it all, who definitely is in the illegal monkey trade.
Maybe more of like a nature prophet.
He just happens to be chanting and overlooking the village that got murdered by this virus.
Do you think it's a curse rather than a scientific...
I think maybe this guy sees an opportunity to get revenge. Maybe he was a kid who liked the monkeys, witnessed the crime of the past. Like, let's say he's down at the creek, like playing with his friends, and he looks up and he goes, holy shit, they dropped the same weapon they used to kill Godzilla on my village. Like, I'm going to learn the arts of being a shaman and come back for revenge. I like that it added a bit of a supernatural twist. Why is Mataba so much more deadly and spontaneously mutates and has 100% mortality? Because it's an act of supernatural revenge.
So how do we like how this movie unveils how the virus gets spread?
Well, that was the one where we see the movie theater scene, right? That's where like we first see the spread start. And that is scary.
Yeah, but it draws back to the monkey being on the ship, the ship coming over, Jimbo getting bit or spit on, and then the guy at the pet store getting scratched. Like, how do we like how that unwrapped?
I think the first half of this movie is brilliantly tight thriller material. The pacing of just watching us get to, they're kind of scared. They know something's happening. We know the government covered it up. And we just assume, I think, as an audience, like, well, this must be serious if they're dropping that bomb, right? Like, that's your assumption, even though it's a nefarious act. So we know something bad's coming. And the way they shuttle us through, again, you're just like, here's just this dipshit who, like you said, is dressed like he's Uncle Jesse from Full House, who might bring down all of society. Because he wants to make, what, like $500?
Yeah, God knows how much he was actually getting paid. Like, that seems like an awful lot of effort for whatever you would get from selling one monkey.
Well, I mean, it's like the Tiger King thing. You're like, how is this a thing that exists? Like, how do people just have these wild fucking animals in the middle of how's this illegal animal trade?
Have like $100,000 just to throw down on food and $1 million to survive a lawsuit.
Unbelievable, right? Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was amazing, though. I like the. I love the first half of this movie, and the scene that is really haunting is after Dustin Hoffman realizes it's airborne. Again, I have no idea how the one monkey had two strains that mutated. I have no idea what antibodies are. I'm like, so you can just find someone who's okay and use their blood to make serum? Like, I have no idea about any of that stuff medically, right? No idea. But the scene when Dustin Hoffman realizes it's airborne, right? And he walks out of the hospital, and we're inside his suit, and all we hear is, whoosh, he's like breathing. And you see these fucking townspeople just running at him with no mask or anything. We have rights. We're Americans. And it's like, oh my God, they don't fucking know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the transmission scene that like was really terrifying. Is you're like, these people are running at him, screaming about their freedoms and their rights.
And they're doing
he's sitting there looking like, oh, fuck, you're all going to die.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm really interested in the fact that Mike just said that is not how you cure a virus. That you find the host.
That's not how you cure a virus.
Or what were you saying?
So they didn't need to find the host?
Did it in like 5 minutes. And
you
can't.
Right. Drained that monkey like a Capri Sun. Yeah, no, I didn't understand that part at all.
No, that's one of the things that they're doing right now is they're trying to use the antibodies of people who have survived COVID to create a treatment. Yeah, they're doing that right now.
And that
So, yeah,
does
you
not
can do
work.
it. It's just you don't do that in 5 minutes. You do that in probably
Based on what I learned from this movie, you hook somebody up to some orange juice.
Yes.
And they get fucking better.
Yes.
You just need a bag of concentrated vitamin C and they're good.
Yeah.
Also, I had forgotten the wrinkle of the movie where it's just like Morgan Freeman just has like the antidote. And then they're like, I totally forgot that the theory of this movie was the military needs Motaba virus to stay a secret so that they can weaponize it. I had totally forgotten that.
Yeah.
I guess that's like the lesson of me on this viewing is you've seen this movie a lot and you don't remember any of the important plot points.
The weaponizing,
like,
I thought, was the most.
case.
I thought that even as a kid, I thought that was the most ridiculous thing. Where it was like the death of people outweighing the fact that you need to keep this a government secret. I thought that was quite a fucking reach.
Well, because again, you're like, yeah, if it spreads, like you could get fucked up too. It's the dumbest military plan since Jurassic World 2. Or Jurassic World 1, where they're like, you know what'd be better than missiles and tanks and armies? A velociraptor. And you're like, that's so stupid on so many levels. You're like, Motaba virus makes a million times more sense than weaponized velociraptor.
And
or
still
like,
doesn't
send in the Stegosaurus battalion. You know what I
but
mean?
not only that, like that only 2 guys in all the government know about that.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing that happens, right? Is like I kept forgetting this movie's in the 90s. Because when they're like, send the troops out and like, we'll silently blow this town away or whatever. And I was like, you could never keep the media out. Like, once the media knows about it, this is on the channels all day, every day. Like, those reporters are going to be broadcasting live as they're hit with the oxygen bomb. And, like, that's not going to just be okay. But then I was like, fuck, we wouldn't be seeing that on Twitter all day, every day. You're like, a huge percentage of American citizens would not have known about that other than some people are sick in a small town.
Well, yeah, they even like announce when they are trying to catch those guys, they use the media to try and catch them by saying they're highly infectious. Yeah. At the same time, that would draw all that media attention back to the town that they were just ready to blow up. So whenever any like news station was going to go to the town to kind of interview what happened, it's just a crater.
And they'd be like, a gas main. Those crazy rednecks were trying to escape again.
Yep.
And they blew up the town reservoir.
Fracking accident.
Yeah, I appreciated Donald Sutherland's recklessness where he's like, I can cover this up. Like,
I can handle that.
Like, good fucking try.
Yeah.
But like back then, you're like, I guess it makes sense.
I also love the idea that he's been sitting on this terrible biological weapon scandal for 30 years. Right. And he just knows that there's a loose cannon Dustin Hoffman in his office for like 20. And so like every day he's like, do you have that guy under control yet? And it's like, this is the 88th time you've asked me. He's impossible to control. I can't do it. But let me ask you this. Is Dustin Hoffman the biggest piece of shit in this movie?
Okay, you're going to have to elaborate a reason why I think that.
I think he breaks quarantine protocol like 4 times. But by jumping in the helicopter, is there not a chance he's going to spread this outside of the town and get a lot more people sick because he wants to save his ex-wife? Is Samuel?
He's kind of assuming like he's not contagious. Because he even goes out on the news station and says, I'm not infected.
He's assuming. He then breaks into a TV station with a gun, breaks into another office with an armed soldier, and does the same thing. We're infected. Get the fuck out. He's inciting mass hysteria everywhere he goes. Right? He hijacks a ship, essentially, against international treaties. I was like, this guy's a fucking madman. And then he's going and talking and touching a little girl saying, hey, can you be bait for the murder monkey?
Yeah.
The one monkey that caused all this. Can you just go stand out there with an apple and pray that Cuba Gooding Jr. can shoot this dart over your shoulder?
And by the way, if you fail, my ex-wife dies.
Yeah.
So to go back to the Dustin Hoffman thing, yeah, he's a piece of shit. But let's go to the idea that he goes to that girl about the murder monkey. I can't imagine a more crazy bullshit scenario than somebody releasing a monkey into the wild. Like, that's a big fucking forest. And then just so happens, not only does the child run into said monkey, she befriends said monkey, draws a picture of said monkey. That picture gets put on a refrigerator so that the mom can prominently display it and that the mom is listening to the news when they're in that moment saying, look for this monkey.
And then, not only that, that guy then shows up on your lawn in a helicopter and is like, can I have your daughter?
Do you care about your daughter too much? Because I'm about to throw her in front of monkey Ebola.
I think the studio went, they accepted Harry and the Hendersons. We can pull this off.
It is like, so even as a kid, I was like, that seems like a stretch. Like, even now as an adult, I'm like, that's the most ridiculous.
Again, it was the 90s, and I'm not sure our parents. I think maybe they were trying to weed some of us out.
My dad's like, I would have sent Josh out there for sure. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's a lot of weird choices in this segment.
At that point, I would have been like, that's probably going to be one of my sisters. My parents love me too much.
Yeah, right. I knew I was the one getting sent out. They're like, we'd send the other one out, but he's not trustworthy enough.
Exactly.
And you're the second favorite, so okay. Yeah, I don't know, man. I was like, I think Hoffman is probably a scumbag in this movie.
Well, getting to that, the one time I did think that is at the very beginning when he tricks the one guard into letting him on the plane.
And the guy's definitely fired.
He's like, hey, this might be my stripes. He's like, it'll be your ass if you don't do it.
Yeah.
And so that guy very well might have gotten fired.
You want to know the real, like the nail in the coffin that Dustin Hoffman's a piece of shit, right? At the end of the movie, when Rene Russo wakes up, he is just sitting there like a fucking creep staring at her. And you can tell 100% he's like, I saved your life. I'm definitely forcing you back into our toxic marriage. Yeah.
There was not one moment in that entire movie where I was like, this marriage is good. They should be there. They should be there.
When he's just screaming at her over the phone.
She had zero romantic interest in him in that entire movie.
No. When she's hallucinating, she says she loved his face.
I get it if it's Rene Russo and Harrison Ford. Rene Russo and Dustin Hoffman. Come on. Like,
Dustin Hoffman's really a 5. No.
Breaking their back for Dustin Hoffman. You gotta respect, though, that at moments in the movie, they took digs at Dustin Hoffman. Rene Russo being like, oh, yeah, real big guy, real tall.
Yeah.
And then at that moment, like, he's talking to that girl about punching him in the nose, and he's like, and it's a real big deal for a real big nose. And I'm like, good, all right.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, it's like, imagine Rene Russo when she shows up there and she's like, I'm going to work this virus and save it. And he comes strolling in. I hijacked a military plane. I'm here to tell you what to do. She's probably like, fuck! Okay. This is exactly why we got divorced and I took the dogs.
I wanted to throw it out there to both of you. So what did you guys think of young Cuba Gooding Jr.?
I thought he was great in the movie. I actually really liked.
I've always loved Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah,
I think he's fantastic.
I don't think he's ever done a role that I dislike. Like I never where I disliked him in the role he did.
Yeah, he had a really good scene too. I like the start when he comes off as like hard ass soldier and he gets humbled, because that's like one of the scary scenes too, where we see like we just open the curtain and there's just a kid with his dead parents.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, fuck. Like, that was a really heavy scene to see right now.
Yeah, it's like a whole different tone than what the movie actually does.
Well, I think it's a tale of two movies, right? Because it is this really good disease thriller at the start. Because Cuba Gooding Jr. freaking out and puking in his mask and wanting to rip it off, that's amazing medical horror.
Yeah.
And it's so scary because you are confronted with some force of nature that you are unable to withstand, right? This hardcore soldier, I read the books, I get it, okay? Back off, I'm on my way up, I'm very ready to ascend, and then he just confronted with it, he breaks down, and that's great. But then at the end it does get a little Air Force One-y.
Although in that same scene I did have to kind of laugh skeptically at it, where he where Cuba Gooding Jr. freaks out and rips off his mask, and Dustin Hoffman's like, God damn it, put him in quarantine, and the other guy's like, oh, it's not airborne, and Dustin Hoffman's like, oh, okay. And just
sweet. Well, that's when they realize it's supernatural, though, because they see the shaman on the hill.
So can I share something with both of you guys? One of the tidbits about this movie that I found out was that when it comes to military, like the level of military that Dustin Hoffman is in, he's required to wear a hat. And in this movie, he said, "Fuck it, I don't want to wear a hat," and so he didn't wear a hat the entire movie because that's how he wanted to be. And point being is that, like, you could almost see a Dustin Hoffman being like, oh, good, we don't have to wear these stupid masks. I don't want to look like an idiot around here the entire time.
Have
So go
either of
figure.
you watched Annihilation?
Yeah.
Right? So our friend Sam from college, me and him saw Annihilation together, right? And he's sitting there for the second half of the movie. I don't know what's happening. He's doing a lot of, ugh, psst. And I'm like, what is going on, right? Like, he's clearly upset about something. I don't know what it is, right? Popcorn or, you know, his pants aren't fitting well. Like, I don't know. What is this guy's problem? At the end of the movie, he's like, well, that sucked. And I was like, did you watch the same movie as me? I was like, that movie's amazing. I was like still riding high, right? I had my adrenaline high. And he's like, yeah, scientists who would take off their quarantine suits. And I was like, shut up,
Oh,
Sam.
you big dumb.
I was like, this is not a hyper-realistic movie. Like,
Well, I again, the liberties that people take. Well, and I think that that's one of the reasons, though, why I assume like a Mike Cloud would probably appreciate a Contagion way more than an Outbreak, because
Yeah.
he goes, there's some fucking ridiculous liberties that he knows about that we probably don't know
Yeah.
about.
I don't know. Like, I'm okay with some liberties, but I feel like this movie took a lot of
it's a
ridiculous
serious flaw
liberties.
in the medical community that they like to ruin movies for the rest of us. Because my wife, who's a nurse, loves that. She loves when there's a hospital scene and she can tell me how that's not how you do that test. That's not how this goes. They're not wearing gloves. I'm like, I get it. I just want to know what the diagnosis is. His dad's a ghost. I need to know this, right?
No. I'm
That's
assuming
not really what even ruined it for
right.
me. It's just, I think summing it up, the helicopter chase scene, like that type of stuff in the Outbreak movie, like it's like you said, it's two different movies that they meshed into one.
It's a weird
100%.
decision to be like, we're fighting a virus. Let's get up there with these birds.
Mike, that was Wolfgang Peterson going, listen, I have to have something explode during this movie as quickly as possible.
I have a thing I'm really good at, y'all.
Most boring chase vehicle ever.
They went under the bridge.
Kind of have it. Submarines are pretty rough.
Yeah, submarines
That's
are
true.
real rough.
Oh no!
It's just bubble
Hunt for Red
fighting.
October
We
by
learned
far
it's
was way
only
more
bubble
thrilling.
fighting. That's all of submarines. Slowly turning and releasing bubbles. That's what those things do. I don't know.
Wolfgang at this point has directed Das Boot in the Line of Fire. So he's like, listen, there was a submarine and that was really slow, and then there was a parade of cars and that did not go very fast. Can I please have some helicopters, please?
I wonder at what point it is the 90s invading, though, right?
Like MASH chopper taking on two Harrier Harrier. What do you call those? Not Harriers. What are those, like military mass Hellfire missile?
Blackhawks. I just remember that.
Blackhawks. It might be Blackhawks.
Down.
Yeah, but like,
no, but
it's ridiculous.
I just think it's funny that this had to come up in a meeting at some point where they're like, this script is good and it is scary and this is intense. His wife got it, and then you flip the page and you're like, they're hijacking what? Like, they're running in where? A boat depot? And then they're going out to sea. Like, what is happening? Right
This kind of leads me to my favorite character of the entire movie. Can I share it with you guys?
Yes.
Sure.
Mrs. Pananini.
Dude, she has the line of the movie.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll call a guy in the Coast Guard. They're like, how good of a friend is he? Closer than his wife would like. You know what's funny, though? That woman saves a town by having an affair.
1,000%.
And doesn't Hoffman had a funny line with her name? Like, what's your name? Mrs. Or what was her name? Miss Panini?
It was Cuba Gooding Jr. and him were in the helicopter.
Yeah.
And he's like, thank you, Mrs. What's her name? And he goes, Pananini. He goes, Pananini. Thank you, Mrs. Pananini.
No, he like shortens. He's like, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I love those. I'll tell you something I didn't know is when you jump off a helicopter, it sways.
Right?
When Hoffman jumped off the helicopter, I'm
He's a very
like, how many
fat
people bigger than Hoffman? Like, if I did that and I'm like double the size of Dustin Hoffman, do I flip that propeller down into my path and get chopped up to death?
I was trying to mentally actually think about the physics on that, of whether you're actually putting any additional downward pressure in addition to your already weight. Like, you can't create more force
This is
downward.
the wrong show for that. You just
Like,
said
jump.
equations and physics and... I don't know, man. I was struck, though. So at the end of the movie, I do need to ask you about this. Whose side are you on when that ship's coming? when they are on the collision path.
100% the group that has the potential cure.
Yeah.
Because
once you have
that's when the gray area is gone.
It's twofold. It's twofold. Number one, you're killing innocent people. But number two, you're actually legitimately saying we have the only thing that might be able to cure this if it actually breaks out of this. Because the assumption at that point is it's gone further than this town. Like, it's affected.
That's my point, though, right? Does it also show you again how horrible a person Dustin Hoffman is? That he doesn't at least bring the cure with him on the helicopter in case they don't listen. So he can pass it off and be like, hey, man, I know this isn't going well and you're going to railroad me. Here's the cure.
What do you mean? Wait, hold on. Where's the cure at that point?
No, but they have the serum, right? They cured Rene Russo, right?
No,
the monkey.
No, they have the monkey, right?
Right.
So
you're saying that you bring it up into the helicopter.
Bring it into the helicopter so that if they still blow up the town, they still have a way to cure it because it's probably out.
When the fuck would it matter? They're about to blow up the entire town where the cure was in the first place. Like, it doesn't matter.
I know, but I'm saying bring the cure with you so that if they still blow up the town, you can save the next town.
They probably would have blown up his helicopter at some point. It's not like he would have
shot him down.
That was his. He was willing to gamble the future.
Running off.
He was willing to gamble the future on that moment. I thought that was crazy.
This movie's full of guys that barely escaped the Me Too movement or actually got killed in the Me Too movement. There's terrible people in this movie in and around all of it. But
little did we know the real virus was the male leads of this movie. Yeah, right? Jesus Christ. I thought it was crazy. That was a scene I was kind of yelling at the TV where Hoffman takes his mask off. And he's like, dude, I'm like, your wife's semi-coherent and dying. Like, stop rubbing her hand on your face. Let her die in peace. She's your ex-wife who left you.
That is 100% Hollywood writing. That right there is them going, let's really take this to 10. And I'm like, that's any doctor in that moment would have been way smarter and been like, I'm about to save thousands of other people's lives if I actually don't take off my fucking mask. Like, so
like she holds Casey's hand, right? When Spacey's dying, that makes perfect sense. Because she's sick now, so she can give him that extra human touch.
Correct.
That other doctors can't. In that moment, again, he's assuming, because they still don't know it works. He's just like, it'll work. It'll work.
Imagine that he has to go and make a decision within the next 24 hours.
That's true.
That he's the only person that could go and make that decision.
Yeah.
And now he's got, like, the cure's not there because he had to divert the helicopter to fucking Fresno. I don't know.
If he's wrong and Cuba Gooding Jr. is swabbing him down because he was wrong, then the bomb drops and they destroy the serum. This is like a chain reaction of terrible things he could have got. You know what I just thought of, Kevin? You know what they should have done for poor Joe Don Baker?
What?
They should have had him play the guy that arrests Donald Sutherland.
Oh, perfect.
Wouldn't that have been great?
But Dale Dye is great.
He's great, but like, wouldn't that have been nice? Like, I know we cut out your entire role.
But now you get. But,
can you be the like surly bastard? It's like you're too crazy to make it, but you can arrest me.
well, there was another movie that Dale Dye and Donald Sutherland were in, where Donald Sutherland reported to Dale Dye. And so that's why I think it's hilarious is that like this is a complete flip on what that was. I forget what the movie was.
Once you hit a certain age and had a haircut, they're like, you guys are going to be in some form of chain of command.
You're like, you definitely look older, so we're going to go with Dale on this one. Yeah, that would have been a nice olive branch to Joe Don, where it's like, thanks for your service.
We're so sorry.
This is completely random. So at one point in the movie, the head of the CDC or the FDA, there was a head of the government organization played by J.T. Walsh. Mm-hmm. J.T. Walsh is one of my favorite, like, that guy actors. He's in fucking everything, and he's always the asshole. Mm-hmm. So he was in this movie, and he had a very prominent part where he made it very violently clear that this is the direction that they were going to go in as a government. Completely uncredited. He is not found in the credits.
Really?
He's not found anywhere within the movie.
He has the best line in the movie, which is when he slams down the photos of the dead people and he goes, well, he starts it. He's like, don't fucking ever say that someone was not 100% for this, right? Like, they're going to carry the burden. And he goes, burn these into your memories. Like, these people should haunt us forever.
Yeah, that's such
because
a
he
great
knows
scene.
they're doing something that has to be done, but he knows he's sickened about it. And he's the one that gives some credibility to the audience. Like, maybe they should blow up a town full of American tax-paying citizens. Like, it's scary. As Americans, we hate the idea that our government is an entity that can take not only our freedoms, but like our life away. But in that moment, he's so good with that, this should haunt us. You're like, well, you know, if he at least understands how serious it is, they can blow my town up. It's cool.
Well, his agent is dog shit because he didn't get.
I don't even know how that's possible that role can be uncredited. He has like a whole 3-minute scene that he's leading. That's fucking sickening, dude. I hate when I hear
he had a
shit like
soliloquy in that whole thing.
that. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that line though, because that was the line where the movie you're like, that gave it the gravitas, right? It's one of the only scenes at the start of the movie where someone in the government is being an actual human being. Like, the weird one in this movie is Morgan Freeman, who's kind of like our narrator, like our heart god in some movies, is just such a fucking callow piece of shit in the whole movie. Like, I'm not used to ever seeing Morgan Freeman in that position, where he's just like this feckless, cowardly little, yes man.
Well, that kind of, like, going back to the military scene there at the end, I had to wonder, is that how, it's like the legitimate way that mutinies are supposed to legally work? Does one guy just say, I'm relieving you of duty, and everyone else just jumps on board like that?
It's like that scene in The Office where it's like, no, I'm relieving you of command. Pew, pew, pew.
This is the second podcast that Griffey and I have done where mutiny is a very large part of the fucking movie. Yeah. Apparently we love the Army or Navy or the armed services having their come up at some point internally.
Crimson Tide, there's 8 mutinies in that movie. Every 10 minutes they're like, haha, I mutinied you, and Gene Hackman's like, oh, this is just like the horses. You fucked up.
You Lipper Sonner stallions. How dare you?
Yeah, they just keep mutinying each other in this snake eating its own tail cycle. Yeah, just they just keep attacking each other, and you're like, all right, that's cool.
But I just love how
but isn't it? It's so weird. Morgan Freeman's arc in this movie just sounds like he's so hardcore and about the mission, and then just cracks.
Yeah, he is the entire movie is chain of command, follow orders. I'll do what I'm told, you do what you're told.
And that's why I kind of wish he stayed evil, because when he drops that line on Hoffman, I was like, that is a bone-chilling Morgan Freeman that we rarely see. And he's like, isn't that lady dying your ex-wife, Sam? And I just remember being like, oh! It's like a World Star video. You're like, oh, damn! You got knocked the fuck out!
But I appreciate that moment, because he was like, you tend to make the truth what you want it to be.
I say, he's not wrong, and that kind of gets back to you, where Dustin Hoffman's kind of a piece of shit, where he still thinks he has some claim.
Well, it's the previous movie where it's, if you're always overstating everything and being dramatic, and that's the thing. Morgan Freeman must be there's a moment in friendships, right? Even a friendship like this, they say they're friends, whatever. There has to be a moment after years and years where you just look at someone and be like, fuck you. And that just unravels slowly. You think back in the past, I put up with a lot of shit from this guy. And Morgan Freeman probably, on some level, is I did the wrong thing at the start, but what the fuck do you want me to do now? I don't know. It was weird. It did make me think. I was like, this feels like a prequel to Shawshank almost. Maybe that's why Red was in there, right?
That's an awesome fan theory. Is that
and then Tim Robbins, he's like, that's my Dustin Hoffman, I can say.
Although the timelines are a little off.
Don't timeline me on my theory.
I'm waiting for that moment with you, Griffey, where I'm just going to go, fuck you, man. Come on.
Yeah.
We've known each other too long. How dare you?
Can you imagine if we were all in a chain of command and had to give each other orders?
No.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I play Dungeons and Dragons with Cloud, and I almost unfriend him weekly. Cloud's the only guy I know who tries to cheat in Dungeons and Dragons.
I don't try to cheat. I just play the rules my favorite.
The only way that this would work is if I am the main boss and I delegate to both you assholes.
Well, I think what would happen, if it happened, honestly, Kevin would have worked his way up. I'd be the guy that did the bad stuff that he couldn't tarnish his record with. But you need a guy like me, and then Cloud's the guy who's like, I'm doing it my way. That's how this would honestly work.
Cloud's the specialist. Cloud is smarter
Cloud
than a lot
is the Dustin Hoffman.
But he also doesn't know how to make his opinion known to people in that moment. He's not going to play that politic game. And so I have helped Cloud rise to a high level within the army. Griffey, I can't fucking help you, but you're still a friend, so I've kept you around.
No.
I've at least
to go
argued
back
the
to
point.
Crimson Tide, I'm the James Gandolfini. I'm just waiting for someone to be a bad commander and I can help them out.
Oh, you're definitely the James Gandolfini.
Not just because I'm overweight and breathe heavy, but yeah, that's like the ilk of commander I would be. Because there's no guy in this movie that would be my archetype. But Gandolfini and Crimson Tide, that's me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're benevolent though, Kevin. I don't think you'd be a Sutherland or whatever.
No.
But you, Cloud, are definitely a Hoffman.
I hate to.
Mike's definitely a Hoffman.
In this movie, not in real life. Gross. Sorry, I forgot. That's a hard accusation to be
Dustin
thrown.
Hoffman, I am reluctant to accept that.
Hold on. If we had to recast this movie with actors nowadays, who are we putting?
I love this game.
And by the way, let me limit the roles. We have to recast Dustin Hoffman, Rene Russo,
Spacey.
Spacey. Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely have to recast Spacey.
Cuba and Donald. That's it. 5. We got to recast.
And maybe
5
even
people.
Morgan Freeman. All right, let's go. So who do we got for Dustin Hoffman? Who are you recasting as your lead?
John Hamm.
Ooh, good one. He's almost too tall
like
and
that.
beautiful. It's like the curse of Hamm is he's good for these roles, but he's like too handsome.
When in doubt, John Hamm. All right. So if you,
Paul Giamatti. I'm trying to think because Hoffman was like on that edge.
Sutherland's part. He could play Sutherland's part.
Oh, that's good.
I
Paul
still throw
Giamatti's
Harrison
such
Ford
a
in.
good bad guy.
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, because my first thought for Sutherland is go someone like Brian Cox. Be like, he's too mean. Like everything he says just sounds mean.
It doesn't sound like he's got the best interest of the country at heart.
It's like him and J.K. Simmons. They're just actors that there's like a nefariousness underneath of whatever they say. All right, so back to the lead.
Who's the guy who played Roose Bolton in Game of Thrones?
Roose Bolton in Game of Thrones?
Who was the guy who played him?
You're asking the wrong guy. I am not good with actor names, especially British.
But anyway, that dude, that was just the calm commander.
Okay. Oh, I got it. For Morgan Freeman's character, I got one. Old Eddie Murphy.
Nah.
Dude, Eddie Murphy can act, and I like him in this movie.
Really?
It's like old drama. Yeah. Yeah, man.
All right.
I like old Eddie Murphy, man. Torn between the right in his mind and the moving up the ladder. I think that'd be a fun. Who do you got?
For me, Morgan Freeman's almost impossible to replace because
You
Morgan
would just
Freeman's
keep
always
Morgan Freeman. We'll just do older Morgan Freeman.
Older Morgan Freeman. That's right.
All right, we still haven't cast the lead, though. We're jumping around a lot. We're ruining Kevin's thought experiment.
I said John Hamm.
He said John Hamm. Who do you got, Cloud?
I would jump back to Harrison Ford. I'd love him for everything.
He's too
He's
old.
so old. He's not in the military.
Good. He's
at
an
this
old
point.
actor.
I saw him in
Who said
Call of the
he was
Wild.
young?
He's old as fuck.
Who said he had to be young?
Because he's still trying to win back an ex-wife, and he's like hijacking things and jumping off helicopters.
Yeah, like who's he married to still? That we're interested in. Like it has to. We're selling tickets to this movie. You jackass.
His ex-wife.
Hey, come see the All-Stars of the 90s.
So what? We've got the Notebook. We've got a couple of people that can't remember each other's names, like trying to help each other in this crisis.
Oh my God. Holy shit. Okay.
So what? One of the things I was thinking about is, all right. So think of when I'm thinking about the person that's taking over Dustin Hoffman's role.
Yeah.
They've got to be relatively younger. They've got to be, I don't know, under 45, I guess, and older than 30.
Right.
And they've got to be somebody that
I would say
toes
40s.
the line. They
40s
have to
is
toe
a
the
good
line
age.
of being an asshole, but they also have to be redeeming. So somebody that can actually, like, I would never put like a Ryan Gosling in this role because I feel like Ryan is almost too good. Like he's a really, I don't know.
But he's
Ryan
too
could
handsome.
do it. I
He's
don't know.
too
Shit.
handsome.
Well, Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, dude, you know who'd be good? And that's weird because I just said he's too handsome. You know who's really handsome but would be kind of good in this weird psychopath role is Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jake could.
I would buy him in any. He's like my go-to. I think he's such an underrated guy.
Yeah,
but you're like the guy who's kind of storming in and doing his own thing all the time. I think you could. I think he could do this.
And Cloud, you say Ryan Reynolds. It's not like I'm opposed, but he's too goofy. Jake Gyllenhaal has played some pretty dark roles.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but did you ever see? What's that movie where Ryan Reynolds plays a serial killer?
I know what you're talking about.
Spoilers. No, I don't know.
He can actually potentially have some better acting chops.
Fair enough.
No, I'd be interested to see Jake Gyllenhaal as our lead. He's sellable.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Rene Russo is being played by Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Weird. It makes the whole "let's get back together" weird. No.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're casting any movie nowadays, it should just be Amy Adams, I feel like. Every smart, powerful leading woman should be her or Jessica Chastain to me.
Jessica Chastain, Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah, I like all three of those actresses a lot. I would go Amy Adams. I just think she's the fucking best, man.
Because she's almost like the quintessential intelligent, PhD, intellectual, female lead.
Because that's the only thing in this movie I would have changed slightly. Not the only thing, let's be fair. But I think Rene Russo should have been a little more hardcore with Hoffman a lot. Like, he's kind of running roughshod in a lot of this stuff. She has that great scene where she shut him down, where it's like, I did take a chance. I married you. Click.
Yeah.
I wanted more of that throughout the movie.
Right. Like when he shows up, she's just like, get the fuck out of here. This is my show.
I'll do Amy Adams.
Like, what are you doing hijacking my job?
Exactly.
See, the only issue that I've got with Gyllenhaal is that he's not as old as Dustin Hoffman is in his role while this movie is filmed. They're probably at least still 8 to 9 years apart, I think, in terms of their age. By the time that both these things are filmed,
he might be older. We don't know, man. These guys eat weird vegetables and shit and take nutrients. I don't know.
Well, because I think about Dustin Hoffman and Rene Russo. God, how old were both of they during this movie?
40s?
Because Jake Gyllenhaal, who's his love interest in this moment? Rachel McAdams.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Who do we got? I'm just saying.
Well, because I was trying to think of who's the young gun that gets invited, right? Who's younger than Jake Gyllenhaal? Is it Tom Holland that is all of a sudden the pilot, right? Are we just fucking rehashing Spider-Man?
Yeah, maybe that's it. We're just going to cast the Marvel universe.
But Chris Pratt is Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, for sure. Who's the guy from Candyman, the new Candyman? Fuck. I forgot that guy's name. I was just watching him the other day. I
thought it was the same Candyman that's in the new Candyman.
No. The guy who plays never mind. We're going to go on a Candyman dive. But yeah, hell, maybe you make what if you did Edward Norton as the lead?
I think Edward Norton would be a great Kevin Spacey replacement.
Yeah. I feel like he's very unlikable a
lot. Edward Norton would actually be a really great Dustin Hoffman person because I equate Edward Norton and Dustin Hoffman to being the same sort of asshole kind of guy. And I like that a lot.
Yeah,
and by the way, the guy that you're thinking about is Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
Yes.
He's the guy that plays in Candyman.
He's great. He was in Watchmen. He's great.
I think he'd be great in Cuba's role.
Great as the young gun who's coming in, getting his stepping up. I like that.
No, not to follow the whole, they have to be a certain ethnicity. I was thinking Donald Gleason would be really good in that role.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was
he'd be really good in the Kevin Spacey role too.
Oh,
he's one of my favorite guys going nowadays. I love Donald Gleason. Every time he's in a movie, I'm so fucking pumped. Yeah, and then that would be cool because maybe you make his dad, Brendan Gleeson, one of my other favorite actors, the Donald Sutherland. He's such a surly badass.
Why are we having Donald Sutherland's role is played by Donald Gleason? Just
I want it.
Lock you down.
I want it. And then Morgan Freeman is the old Morgan Freeman. Who do you have for Freeman, Cloud?
No, I was going back here. What do you think? Where do you think Nick Cage would fit in this movie?
Any fucking where he wants. Nick Cage could be the monkey. Nick Cage could be the Mutaba virus. What if every time they looked in a telescope, it was just Nick Cage going, ah!
How about Nick Cage is just Jimbo? He's got his own.
Yeah, he's the guy who steals the monkey at the start.
He steals the monkey, yeah.
I'm loving late stage Cage, man. I'm all in. He can be any. That's like the caveat. We're gonna cast the movie with the guys we talked about, but any role that Nicolas Cage wants, he gets. But yeah, I think we got a pretty solid cast.
Casting this is great.
I think it's pretty good. So who do we got? Edward Norton, the guy from Candyman whose name I can't remember because I suck. Domhnall Gleeson, Amy Adams, Brendan Gleeson. Who else did we miss? The Morgan Freeman role.
Old
Eddie
Morgan
Murphy.
Freeman.
Eddie Murphy. I'm telling you, Eddie Murphy has got chops. I would love him in this role. Who do you guys got? Replace Murphy. I'll let you replace Murphy before we wrap up.
I just did. Old Morgan Freeman.
You can't just replace Morgan Freeman with older Morgan Freeman.
Sure I can.
I believe that you can take Morgan Freeman's role and you could throw John Hamm in it.
There you go, John Hamm.
John Hamm can just do everything.
It is literally my Swiss Army knife. Like
he is that good. It is weird that he hasn't had like the bigger break into film yet.
Yeah,
because I do think he's that good, man. I love that dude.
Because you have to pivot from being this asshole that tells somebody no to being the guy that goes, "Listen, I'm going to make the call and things are going to be all right." Like,
yeah.
you can't do that very easily, in my opinion.
That's true. I'm down for. I'll let John Hamm do it. I don't know. I'm trying to think because like the only problem with Eddie Murphy is maybe he's too old. The Morgan Freeman guy needs to feel like he's right on the doorstep to being a very old man like Sutherland, right? Because he still has like a future career he's fighting for. If he's too old, you're like, you're already too old. It doesn't matter.
You know what? I guess why wouldn't we be able to go and throw a Jamie Foxx into that role, right? Like
now he is truly the Swiss Army knife that can play every single role.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like he's that good. I mean, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the classic, the one that's like almost not fair is you just say Denzel for every role.
I don't because
he's too powerful though, because you couldn't imagine that anyone would make him break and like be above him.
Right.
He's too powerful.
Too powerful.
All right, guys. Closing pitching points as to in the moment we're in now, why is Outbreak still something that we should be able to watch and enjoy? Cloud, I'll start with you.
I just say it's just a popcorn movie and is so utterly ridiculous and so far removed from what we're dealing with that I don't think it will make you not want to watch it. And the characters are enjoyable to watch. I love Dustin Hoffman. I love the cast. There are a lot of good things about the movie. Overall, I hate it. I think, as we talked about, that I kind of realized it's two movies mashed into one, okay. And I always hate it when movies do that.
I feel like you're not selling it as well as I had hoped, but that's fine.
I give it a 2-star out of 5.
That's low. I'm not gonna lie, that's low. Kevin, tell people why Outbreak is still an enjoyable, awesome movie for the day and age we're in.
How can I give more stars than 5? Let me figure this out.
You can take Cloud's 3 extra stars and pile them up. This is an 8 out of 5 for Kevin Weinman.
We have a 3-star deficit.
So I'm a junk movie fiend, which means that for World War II, I'm gonna watch Inglourious Bastards and not Saving Private Ryan, and I'm gonna watch I'm gonna watch Pearl Harbor and not Tora Tora Tora. So I think that like.
I think these are all good movies.
Well, no, they're all great. Like I'll watch all of them, but the whole point being is that like I like to turn my brain off, and Outbreak allows you the opportunity to get a little bit of fun when it comes to world-ending viral outbreaks.
Yeah.
And you certainly don't have to be concerned about what that outcome looks like. Whereas Contagion brings you a little bit home. Outbreak takes you a little bit out of the norm.
Yeah, man. What I would say about Outbreak is I think most movies were looking for that human connection that then makes the story matter to us. And I think this movie really unfairly, as Cloud kept saying, it's the biggest, dumbest popcorn movie. The start of this movie is a really intimate look at fucking pure terror, man. I think this movie's scary as fuck. And I think the visual storytelling is insanely strong at the start of this movie. And yes, I think that's what's fun, right? The moment we're in, we can see things on screen that look familiar and terrifying to us. So it gives us that experience of playing out possibilities in a safe space, and then it just has a lot of fun at the end, man. Because they're like, we're not going to solve it here and make you feel 100% better, but hey, helicopter chase. And so
but they do solve it. They solve it in like 2 minutes.
What I don't like is that, Cloud, the way you're selling it on a 2 stars, you are so downgrading amazing visual storytelling that happens until they hijack that helicopter, I would argue. This is such a strong, tense thriller.
And that's with me. Like sometimes, like it could be a great movie up to a point, and then after that, it gets bad. It ruins the movie for me. But you're right.
I don't think it's bad, man, because you have Dustin Hoffman going out and being a weird criminal, and that's kind of you get like this extra movie, right? You get a little Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid out of nowhere, right? So it's like an extra movie ticket for free. I don't know. I think it's topical. It's scary, it's thoughtful, and it's fun, and I think that's a pretty cool mix, man. So that's it, guys, for Outbreak. That's it for our very contagious double feature tonight, man. I hope that this was fun for you guys. Again, we're going to be trying to do as many movies as we can. Our theme this month, the pod, is a madman. So a lot of movies that put us in the POV of madmen, serial killers, criminals like that. Also, for an extra theme, the pod is held captive. So we've got Misery, Black Snake Moan, a lot of good stuff like that. So make sure you subscribe. Leave us a rating and review wherever you find the pod. Find us on the Nerd Alchemist channel on YouTube, and stay tuned for all the fun movies. We're even going to try to do some extra movies that are new to streaming and video on demand, because we got a lot of time to watch stuff, man. So, like, I just watched The Platform today, and I'm wildly excited to talk about it. So stay with us. If you have any suggestions, please get a hold of us. Cloud, Weinman, thank you guys so much for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, stay inside, stay safe. We'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care.